Welcome to The Dialogue. I am Hamid Shirvani, President of California State University Stanislaus, and I'm the host of this new program. Dialogue will feature interviews with community leaders, elected officials, faculty, students, and other friends of the university. Here at California State University Stanislaus, we are proud of the strong partnership we have throughout the community, and we are equally proud of the initiatives we have accomplished to build a nationally recognized top-quality institution of higher education. Our guest for today's program is United States Congressman Honorable Dennis Cardoza. Congressman Cardoza is currently serving his second term in the U.S. House of Representatives, where he represents California's 18th Congressional District, including Merced County and the portions of San Joaquin, Stanislaus, Madera, and Fresno counties. Congressman Cardoza is the co-chair of the Blue Dog Coalition, a group of 37 moderate to conservative House Democrats who are committed to balanced budgets and fiscal responsibility. Congressman Cardoza, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. And we'd like to, it's a great evening to have you, night
before the election.
Night before the election, exactly. But you're not part of the election, so your views are bipartisan.
That's
or
right.
Neutral, shall we say. Let's, since you're in the grounds of the California State University Stanislaus and on the Stanislaus, CSU Stanislaus TV channels, let's start with some education questions.
Okay.
As you know, the four-year cost of four-year colleges, cost of tuition and fees increasing rapidly. And in this context, Pell Grant is shrinking. I mean,
right.
Down from $13.6 billion to $12.7 billion. That's a substantial cut, which basically translates to $120 per student.
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on it? I mean, is it going to continue? Are we going to go up? I mean,
well, this is airing the night before the national election. We don't know yet, but it's going to air after. It's taping the day before the election, but it's airing after. So the people who watch this will actually already know what's happening. But I will tell you that it's been our platform, the Democratic Caucus and the House of Representatives platform, to expand Pell Grants substantially, because we believe in opportunity, and the way you achieve economic opportunity is to expand access to universities and to people getting furthering their education. Now, we support technical programs. We support a lot of different things. But I think the cost of a four-year college education is just getting out of control for so many middle-class families. Take my example. I'm living the American dream. I got to represent this area in Congress. My grandparents came here in the 1920s, didn't know the language, didn't have any money, had no education. But the great equalizer in American society is the ability to get an education and achieve what your potential is as a human being. And to unlock that potential, we have to do everything we possibly can to expand opportunity. And a college education is the great equalizer in our society. So I was a student here at this campus. I'm very proud of my time that I spent here. While I didn't graduate here, I graduated from the University of Maryland. This was a wonderful 2 years I spent on the Stanislaus campus. We didn't have facilities that were nearly as nice as the one we're in tonight, but we got an excellent education then, as you do now. And I just think that we have to expand opportunities, and the Pell Grants are just one important part of that.
Appreciate your support in that. That's very important to us as educators. Now, since we are on education topic, I am sure you're aware of this higher education, the Commission on Future of Higher Education that Secretary Spelling was heading, or is still heading, but they have produced their report. And that somehow is controversial. But at the same time, there's a lot of buy-in from the businesses. There are a lot of buy-ins from the community members, but there are also some opposition from the higher education groups. Not all, but majority, I should say. And what's your view on it? I mean,
well, I'm not so familiar with this particular commission's results, but I will tell you, and maybe you'd like to prompt me and ask me more specific questions
Sure.
on it and what the controversial parts are. I think that universities are doing a fabulous job educating our kids. One of the things that I believe that we shouldn't do is tell universities how to think. One of the things that that was my best experience in college was being taught to think openly and expand your horizons.
Sure.
And I believe in freedom in the university setting, freedom for the professors to teach an open curriculum and challenge children and kids to young people to open their minds and think outside the box. That's what makes us different, frankly, than many of our rival competitor countries around the world, where rigid thinking limits their ability to provide innovation. So, what was the
well? Actually, most of the Commission's report, although a great deal of it, a good portion of it, focuses on higher, but it focuses on K-12 education. Perhaps the best ways, as you know, best way to frame this question is to focus on K-12 education here in Central Valley. As you know, both in your area, both UC Merced and us are facing challenges regarding K-12 education. First of all, there's a very high portion of high school dropouts. Mm-hmm. And then when students graduate from high school, out of every 100 students that graduate from high school, only about 24-25% of them are qualified to go to university. Mm-hmm. And within that small portion, a large percentage of them require remediation.
Right.
So somewhere down the road, this K-12 education that currently we have is not working, or there are a good deal of issues. Mm-hmm. I think what the report and, of course, on the rubric of No Child Left Behind is doing is a series of assessments, series of exams, and, of course, eventually moving towards kind of national standards, but starting local. This is where I'm going with
No Child Left Behind has gotten substantial criticism for the last few years. Frankly, the oversight has not been very good. Neither has the funding been good. No Child Left Behind was a deal made between President Bush and the Republican Congress, and the Democrats and Republican Congress at the time, and in his first 2 years in office. And it was supposed to move education forward. It was supposed to do national testing, national assessments. And while I favor national assessments, one of the problems that we had in California is there's double testing because of there's state testing and federal testing. Kids talk about being tested incessantly. And frankly, the funding never came through to do a lot of the things that were promised under No Child Left Behind. I'm fond of saying that the only thing that No Child Left Behind has really done for us is provided the 2 little red schoolhouses that they built out of plywood in front of the Department of Education in Washington. And it really hasn't fulfilled the promise, other than putting out press releases at the time that they were doing something about education. So I'm very concerned about making sure that we're not building bureaucracies and we're actually doing something to further the education of our children. You're right about the fact that too much of our local valley population isn't ready for college. It's a big concern. And it's having said that, we've done a lot. When I was in the legislature, I worked with Lieutenant Governor Cruz Bustamante when he was Speaker. We put $250 million in college preparation courses at the high school level to get kids ready to go to college. And we actually increased the Valley college going rates substantially at that time. When I first got into the legislature, 1.7% of Valley kids were qualified to go to a University of California, and less than that even applied. And you counter that with Orange County, which had a 13% population that was prepared to go to the University of California. We've increased those numbers substantially, almost doubling them, but it's still not nearly enough. We're supposed to take, I believe it's either 4 or 7%, I can't remember the number, is supposed to qualify for the University of California. The top 25 or 27% are supposed to qualify for the state schools, and then the rest are
Right.
supposed to go to the community colleges. We have to do better in getting our kids ready. That includes parental involvement with their children. It includes more and better funding for our elementary and high schools. And it requires intervention once they get here, because I remember when I went to school there was a lot of remedial programs as well. Too many of my people who apply for jobs with my office don't have the writing skills necessary to do the job. So these are serious questions and serious issues, and we need to do a better job at getting our kids prepared. There's no question.
I appreciate what you're saying, but I want to kind of go a little bit further on that. Kind of leaving the rhetoric of or context or the content of No Child Left Behind.
Mm-hmm.
What do you, given the problems, the challenges that you're facing in K-12 education, would you support or not a kind of a final exam like many European countries? I mean, in Spain, in Germany, in England, in France, if you got a high school, you got an elementary school certificate, you take a national exam. You take a high school diploma, you take a national exam. So, there's somebody from Vermont and somebody from California, when they get a high school diploma, should know equal amount. There has to be something basic skill. Of course, California can go beyond it, or Texas or Vermont, but the basic skill that one calls a high school diploma. They also have something called vocational high school diploma. Not everybody goes to college.
Right.
What's kind of your take on this?
I have problems with new national bureaucracies, frankly, and I think the states can do an adequate job. I hate having additional mandates. When it comes to a specific bill, how I would vote on a specific bill, I would have to look at the particular piece of legislation. But I'm not sure that we're under-regulated in this area. I think that unless the federal government decides that they're going to do much more with education than they currently have done, I don't know if we even have the right to tell local and state leaders what to do.
But forgive me, I mean, you can forget about the national one. What about the state? Kind of bringing that concept to different...
The state, I believe, has put forward
there is
high school exit exam. I think they've delayed implementation on it because of some problems coming forward, or they're talking about it, at least the delay in the implementation. So I think that horse is really out of the barn already. I am concerned that the concept of telling employers that this young man or young woman has achieved a certain level on a final exam is certainly one test, and I think it sends a message to employer that you can pass one particular exit exam. I am more concerned about not teaching to an exam so that you can pass, but really educating our young people, teaching them the basic skills to read and to write, to do math, to think on their own. And some of those things are subjective, and some people take better tests than others. I think the jury's still out for how this should be evaluated. I'm not opposed to it, but I'm not thinking that this is the end-all. And I prefer spending resources in truly educating kids. And at the end, I'm not sure if it's going to be a real useful tool or not.
Forgive me for kind of continue that, but I promise you that I'm not going to continue any further. But you were talking about not teaching to exam. And this is, of course, it is not a discussion between two of us, but it's the dialogue out there that we are trying to bring in as a topic of discussion for our audience. But this is a very kind of solid response that many people who are opposed to the exam, they say. But isn't that our lawyers, our medical doctors, our engineers, our architects, everyone, they have to pass the exam, a final exam, to be called an architect or an engineer
or a
lawyer.
True. I think the standard there is much higher for that, and the breadth and depth of, the medical boards, I believe, are 3 days worth of exams.
That's right. So
the law exams are at least 2 days.
Or physical therapy or a speech pathology, something. But couldn't that high school be something like, again, I'm referring to you, something reading, writing, basic geography, basic history?
I think that there's some merit to making kids pass a standard that isn't just subjective. I think there is some merit to that. I've listened to both arguments.
Right.
I don't have a strong opinion one way or another. And that's really not taking a political answer. Right. By the time this airs, we'll be out of the political season. It really is that the amount of resources that we're spending on some of these things concerns me. And I really want the value to go into education. And I'm not sure that it has, and for a number of reasons. So I have to look at the specific proposals. I don't want to see us just do more bureaucracies. I wouldn't want the federal government to get involved in it so much, because I think that I'm not sure that we get the bang for our buck. But by the time everyone takes their administrative slice out of things, and I'm certainly for standards. I think that parents need to see how their schools are performing. And when we post in the newspaper that you've got the lowest school in the district, that puts pressure on the administrators to try and raise the school up. But when I also go into those schools and I see the kids that are in some of those low-performing schools, there's some real challenges there. And so we have to look at society and doing everything we can to do a better job with education.
So it's still evolving.
It's evolving. It's an evolving process. Yes, it is.
Illegal immigration, is a very, very hot issue, and is going to remain a hot issue. Certainly, it has clear implications here in Central California, Central Valley. Isn't that time to think about to come up with a solid solution? I mean, there are illegal immigrants here, but are we going to stop their education, or are we going to help them?
Well, there's a couple ways to look at this. There have been a number of proposals in Congress. First of all, let's look at what's driving it. You have a situation where 40%, according to one of the latest polls I've seen, in just one country, and this is predominantly all over the world, there's people that feel this way, want to come to the United States. 40% of the country of Mexico wants to move north and become U.S. residents. 20% are planning to do so at the current time illegally. Those are huge numbers.
That's right.
And our country cannot withstand that kind of population shift. It just isn't realistic. We have to do something. At the same time, we have a different issue, and that is there's 14 million people that are already here. They have families here. Many of the times, half the family will be American citizens. The other half of the family is are illegally here, are undocumented and illegally here, breaking U.S. laws. The question we have to ask ourselves sometimes is, does it make sense for our country to expend the resources to find and prosecute and send them back? Also to break up families. I've seen some pretty bad problems where you send dad out of the country and the kids become gangsters because they have no parental supervision. I can cite a couple personal examples where I saw that happen. I'm very concerned about busting families up. whether that makes sense for us economically, socially, all the rest. At the same time, it is absolutely understandable that people are upset by the fact that tax dollars are going to support, in some cases, to prosecute when criminal aliens get in trouble. The federal government has not given California back its fair share. They call it SCAP funding, and have not backfilled the court costs or the legal fees to incarcerate illegal aliens. So there are a number of issues we have to deal with. Mr. McCain and Mr. Kennedy had a comprehensive proposal that said if you had been here for less than 2 years, you had to go back. If you had been here from 2 years to 5 years, there was one process to become a legal citizen. If you'd been here over 5 years, you'd never gotten in trouble, and you wanted to, and you paid your back taxes, and you paid a fine for breaking the law, that there was a way of becoming a resident, a legal resident, after 10 years. That, in my opinion, had a lot of merit. That made sense to me. If they were here for a short time, send them back. And then do very tight border security measures. So I voted for the fence.
So you did vote for the president?
I voted for the fence. I did not vote for Mr. Sensenbrenner's bill. I thought there were a lot of problems with how that bill was laid out, but there were a number of measures that went through Congress. We need to do some things to tighten the borders. We also need to do some things to figure out how to take away the incentive for that 40% that wants to come here. It's a very significant problem, and we're going to have to deal with it in the next 2 years.
Thank you. I kind of want to go back to a little bit to Washington, then I come back. Based on tomorrow's election, well, sometimes the forecasters are not right, but according to a large number of forecasts, the House will turn Democratic. And Nancy Pelosi is going to be the Speaker. What's your view on it? I mean, what do you...
Well, it's interesting. Some people are saying that there'll be, if Nancy's the Speaker, the world will come to an end. I don't think that's the case. Nancy and I have a very different vision and view, political ideology, view of the world. But at the same time, I have seen her be very fair, be a very strong leader. She cares passionately about California. She cares passionately about children. She cares about education. She cares about making sure that there's opportunity in America. Those are things that many of us can believe in, do believe in, and want to see those policies go forward. Making sure that we deal with issues like global warming and some of the environmental issues that are of issue to us, clean air, clean water. Those things need to be addressed. They need to be examined, and we need to give those ideas a chance. I will tell you that in the last few years, since we have had a unified government under the Republicans, the oversight responsibilities of Congress have not been carried out. And one of the things that I've decided, whether it be on the state level or on the federal level, is that divided government is actually better than united government. If you look back over the history of Congress, when we have had total one-party representation in the White House and in both houses of Congress, it doesn't matter which party is in total control, spending goes up. Only when we have divided government have we kept a lid on government spending, and we've done a better job of keeping taxes down. So I actually believe that if the Democrats take over one house, we'll do better oversight, there'll be more accountability, and we'll be able to rein in the public spending that's just busting the budget right now.
Much better balance.
I think it's better balance.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. There is there are a variety of issues that certainly we can talk about, and everybody's interested to hear your views on. One of them is Iraq. Where do you think we're going? I mean, where do you think we should go?
Well, it's very tough. About 2 years ago, I wrote to the president, and I outlined a strategy based on my discussions with a number of international scholars, the Brookings Institute. I sit on the International Relations Committee, and I'd spoken to some of our European allies and colleagues from other European nations. And from that, I came up with a document that I sent to the president advocating for a change of course. That at that early stage in the war effort, that we needed to build security zones, establish commerce and education and healthcare in smaller zones, not try and do it in the entire country at once. We needed more manpower early, and I advocated for him to do that. We advocated for 200,000 more troops to be brought into the military so we could meet all our commitments around the globe. The president chose not to respond to my letter as an individual member. He did not respond to genuine calls by conservative and moderate members of Congress on the Democratic and Republican side to alter the course. And it has really limited our flexibility at this point. We have a heck of a mess there right now, where we're not nearly succeeding as well as we should. Now, that presents us with a lot of dilemmas, because I don't believe America should ever lose. I always want America to win. I think it's very difficult, the situation we now find ourselves in, where our European allies or our allies around the world have lost a lot of confidence in the credibility of this administration, where we have challenges in not only Iraq, but in Iran, in Afghanistan, and North Korea. We have the problems in Darfur, where there's mass murder going on and starvation and terrible things that, as the world's only superpower, we should be looking at and trying to do a lot more than we are. And with that understanding, it's hard for me to tell you, I know what needs to be done there. We need to have a lot more troops there, or we need to get our troops out of there. The problem is we don't have the troops to put in and deal with all the crises we have, because the planning has not been put in place. So we're going to have to regroup and figure out a new strategy. I'm hopeful that by the time that this program airs, that the president will have gotten a clear message that the American people think that there needs to be a new course, that he will work with Congress. We've already been talking, I was on a conference call today, where we're going to pass the olive branch to the president and say, look, we want to work with you. We don't like the current direction that you've taken things. A number of people have called for Mr. Rumsfeld's resignation. I've called for Mr. Rumsfeld's resignation. Yesterday, the Military Times called for the newspaper that serves the men and women in uniform, called for Mr. Rumsfeld's resignation, because we need a new direction. And it's not for me, who has limited knowledge of what's happening in every place, to say, okay, this is what we need to do. We need to have a discussion. And I'm hopeful that the president will see it that way, and that we will, in fact, have the opportunity to have a discussion and take this effort into a new direction where we can be successful.
With the context of all this Iraq war and other issues, economy and everything else, what's your view on Middle America? They're behind. Rich is getting richer, poor is dwindling in Middle America. Housing costs skyrocketing, salaries have not gone up that much. They don't even keep up with inflation. Back in 70s, a middle-class family could have a beautiful life, satisfied life, not luxury, but satisfied. Right now, a middle-class family scrambling and struggling. Where is this great America is going?
Well, we do have a really tough situation facing Middle America. You have a situation where real wages are too low, gas prices are too high, where we're challenged, as I said before, in 4 or 5 different places around the world, and our military's too spread out. I believe that we have to expand opportunity, like we were talking about. I believe that everyone who possibly can needs an education. Places like India and China are building brand new research universities all over their countries. I think China's building 30, India's building 20, we're building one, University of California at Merced. We need to expand those opportunities for people. We need to invest in education. And I remain hopeful. But I will tell you that we have to recognize that there's a problem, that debt's going up, that middle America is being squeezed. President Clinton used to be fond of saying there's nothing wrong with America that can't be fixed by what's right with America. And I believe that it's innovation, the entrepreneurial spirit of the American people, and the willingness to work hard. All those things are our hallmarks. But we have to unleash it. And we have to do that by providing sound encouragement to our citizens to rally, to do these things. We have to give them the opportunity through education and through an environment that promotes prosperity. And I hope that the next few years we can get back on track, because I think we've gone off track the last few years. And we'll see if we can bring everybody together. As a moderate, I'm going to try and bridge the partisan divide. And I'm hopeful that we'll get folks from the other party to do so as well, and we will see a brighter future for all Americans.
That's wonderful. Congressman Cardoza, thank you so much. It was an honor to have you.
It's a pleasure.
Enjoyed very much your comments, and we hope that you're going to come back.
I'll come back anytime.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank
we
you.
Enjoyed it very much. This has been The Dialogue, featuring Congressman Dennis Cardoza. We look forward to bringing you many more episodes of Dialogue to your household. So tune in next time to our Dialogue. Cheers.